They did not introduce themselves with ships or ambassadors. They introduced themselves with a verdict. The transmission appeared everywhere at once, every military network, every civilian screen, every emergency frequency. It cut through encryption like paper and silenced every system that tried to resist it. There was no symbol, no language marker, no greeting, only a sentence. Galactic Custodial Authority has found humanity guilty. Punishment, species termination. Compliance window, 72 hours. At first, nobody moved. In Washington, a communications officer stared at the message, blinking slowly as if his eyes had misfired. In Moscow, a general removed his glasses and cleaned them, buying himself time to pretend it wasn't real. In Beijing, a senior party official whispered, "This is a hack." In Islamabad, a radar technician whispered something else. "This is judgment." He didn't know why that word felt correct. But it did. Because the message didn't threaten. It declared. Admiral Elias Ward received it alone. He was in Orbital Defense Command, stationed aboard the aging command platform Vigilant, drifting 600 kilometers above Earth. The station was old enough to remember the last real war humanity had fought against itself, and like most veterans, it carried the scars quietly. Ward read the message once. Then again. He didn't feel fear. Fear required uncertainty. This message had none. Behind him, the command deck began to fill. Officers moved quickly but without panic, like surgeons responding to a patient already dead. "Admiral," Commander Rios said carefully, "we've confirmed origin." Ward didn't look away from the screen. "Tell me." Rios hesitated. "Outer system. Beyond Neptune." Ward turned slightly. "A ship?" "No, sir." Rios swallowed. "A fleet." Ward stood up straight. "How many?" Rios's voice dropped. "Enough." They appeared on telescopes first. Pinpricks of distortion against the stars, barely visible until computers isolated them. Then the scale became clear. The largest object was not merely a ship. It was architecture. A construct the size of a small moon, surrounded by thousands of smaller vessels arranged in perfect geometric symmetry. No heat signatures. No weapon emissions. No movement. Just presence. Watching. Waiting. Judging. Ward folded his hands behind his back. "They were here the whole time," he murmured. General Marcus Alvarez stood beside him, his voice low and bitter. "Waiting for what?" Ward didn't answer. He suspected the truth was worse than anything Alvarez imagined. Waiting for humanity to prove itself guilty. The world demanded answers. Governments issued statements promising investigation. Scientists proposed theories: rogue AI, unknown alien species, elaborate psychological warfare. Religious leaders called it prophecy. Financial markets collapsed within hours. People bought food, fuel, guns. Some prayed. Some drank. Some simply sat and stared at the sky, hoping to see something that made sense. Nothing did. Because the fleet did not move. It didn't need to. Its certainty was enough. Humanity responded after 12 hours of silence. Not with weapons. With a question. Identify the crime. The answer came immediately. Images flooded every screen. Hiroshima. Auschwitz. Verdun. Baghdad. Kigali. Cities burning. Bodies broken. Humans killing humans in every way imagination had ever devised. A voice accompanied the images. Calm. Ancient. Merciless. You are a predator species. You exterminate your own kind. You will exterminate others. Preemptive termination is required. In Orbital Command, nobody spoke. Because the evidence was real. Humanity had done these things. Ward watched without flinching. He had been a soldier long enough to understand truth didn't stop being truth just because it was inconvenient. General Alvarez slammed his fist into the console. "They don't know us." Ward spoke quietly. "They know exactly what we are." Alvarez stared at him. You agreeing with them? Ward met his eyes. No. He looked back at the alien fleet. But I understand why they're afraid. Another message arrived. Human leaders will present themselves for processing. Compliance will reduce suffering. Processing. Not execution. Processing implied system. Efficiency. Routine. Like slaughterhouses. Secretary Halvorsen appeared on the command deck via secure projection, her face pale. They expect surrender. Ward nodded. Yes. Halvorsen hesitated. What happens if we refuse? Ward didn't answer immediately. He watched the alien construct hanging beyond Neptune. They'll demonstrate. They didn't have to wait long. A mining colony on Europa stopped transmitting. No distress call. No explosion. Just silence. 20,000 civilians vanished between one heartbeat and the next. Satellites showed nothing but an empty facility. Every human gone. Every structure intact. Removed. Cleanly. Efficiently. Like evidence erased. Halvorsen covered her mouth. My God! Alvarez whispered. They're harvesting us. Ward's jaw tightened. No. Not harvesting. Processing. Earth's leaders convened emergency session after emergency session. Options were discussed. None were real. They couldn't fight something they couldn't even detect properly. They couldn't negotiate with something that had already passed judgment. For the first time since humanity crawled out of its caves, it faced an enemy that did not hate it. It simply didn't value it. That was worse. Late into the second night, Ward stood alone in the observation chamber. Earth turned slowly beneath him. Blue. Fragile. Alive. His home. A voice spoke behind him. You always did prefer watching the battlefield alone. Ward didn't turn. Alvarez joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. Ward accepted one. They stood in silence. Finally, Alvarez asked, You ever think they're right? Ward sipped the coffee. About what? That we're monsters. Ward watched lightning flash over the Pacific. We are monsters. Alvarez frowned. That's supposed to make me feel better? Ward looked at him. No. He took another sip. It's supposed to make you understand why we win. At hour 60, the custodians transmitted again. This time, they showed themselves. The being was tall. Thin. Pale as bone. Its black eyes reflected nothing. No anger. No contempt. Just certainty. You have failed to comply, it said. Its voice was smooth. Emotionless. Termination will proceed. Ward stepped into view. He wore no ceremonial uniform. No medals. Just black command fatigues. You skipped negotiation, Ward said calmly. There is nothing to negotiate. Ward tilted his head. You crossed the galaxy to kill us. Yes. Why? The alien studied him. Survival. Ward smiled faintly. Whose? The alien didn't answer. Ward stepped closer. You're afraid of what we might become. The custodian's eyes narrowed slightly. We are not afraid. Ward nodded slowly. Every predator says that right before it strikes first. The alien replied instantly. And every prey species says that right before extinction. Ward chuckled softly. That surprised the alien. You made one mistake, Ward said. The custodian stared. We do not make mistakes. Ward's eyes hardened. You never asked what we built after the last time someone tried to wipe us out. He turned away from the screen. Walked toward a sealed console at the rear of the chamber. It had no markings. No identifiers. Just a biometric lock. Alvarez stepped forward. Elias. Ward placed his hand on the scanner. It glowed red. Waiting. Alvarez whispered. What is that? Ward didn't look back. Insurance. The console turned green. Deep beneath Earth. Beyond Mars. Past Pluto. Something ancient stirred. Ward spoke one final time. You think predators beg? He pressed the activation key. They don't? And in the darkness beyond the edge of the solar system, humanity's answer began to wake up. When humanity woke the sleeping giant, the custodian's voice crackled again across every channel, calm, clinical, and utterly certain. Humanity is uncooperative. Termination sequence will begin in T-12 hours. Ward didn't flinch. He never did. Behind him, the command deck buzzed with quiet panic. Officers who had trained their entire lives to fight interstellar war were now reduced to watching their species hang by a thread, measured in hours. Alvarez muttered, "You're insane. 12 hours, Elias. That's all we have. 12 hours to either die or—" He trailed off, staring at the console. Ward turned slowly, his face as still as marble. "Or to remind them why humanity doesn't bargain with murderers." Deep beneath the ice of Europa, the human-built facility known only as Project Lazarus hummed to life. It had been a secret for decades, buried under layers of bureaucracy, lies, and misdirection. A warship of unimaginable scale slept in orbit above the facility, its systems inert but ready. The sleeping giant that had been humanity's final answer to annihilation. Alvarez's voice crackled over Ward's private channel. "You're talking about the Doomsday Protocol? We've never activated it." Ward's hand hovered over the activation console. "No one has. Until now, it was insurance. Just in case the universe thought it could erase us. Now, it's the only thing that stands between survival and extinction." On the screens, custodian vessels shifted slightly. They had detected the subtle energy fluctuations, the first sign that humans were no longer passive. The custodians did not panic. They were designed not to. They observed, analyzed, and executed. But they hadn't counted on unpredictability. T-6 hours. Earth's orbital defense systems flickered as Project Lazarus began broadcasting low-level subspace signals. The custodians paused. They detected the signature, a frequency of energy that was old. Prehistoric even. Almost alive. Ward stood on the bridge, hand on the console, voice low. "We're awake. The universe should have known better than to assume we'd lie down quietly." Alvarez's jaw tightened. "Do you realize what you just did? You've just painted a target on Earth. On every city. On every human alive. This isn't a defense. This is a declaration of war." Ward nodded. "Exactly. And the universe is about to learn why that's a mistake." The custodians responded swiftly. A wave of nanoprobes streaked toward Earth at near light speed, invisible to every radar, every satellite. Their purpose was surgical, neutralize the activation sites. But the humans were ready. The moment the probes entered the system, Project Lazarus automated defenses triggered. Mass driver cannons, silent for decades, launched kinetic intercepts. The probes disintegrated mid-space in brilliant flashes, unnoticed by the public below, but clear to Ward and his bridge. Alvarez let out a low whistle. "You've built a weapon against, well, everything." Ward's smile was grim. "Not against everything. Against those who think they can write our obituary without a signature." T-2 hours. The custodian fleet shifted closer. Their ships gleamed like polished ivory in the distant sun. They transmitted a single message, a warning. Humanity will be erased. Compliance is required. Ward pressed his hand on the console. "We're not compliant. We're responsive." A tremor ran through the bridge. Not physical, but psychic. Humanity's final defense, the sleeping giant, was coming online. Electromagnetic fields, graviton pulses, temporal displacement arrays, systems no alien species had ever seen in action. The custodians calculated probabilities. They were experts in war, in extermination, in predicting every possible human reaction. But humans don't calculate probabilities. Humans act. 1 hour to impact. In a coordinated display, every human orbital station, every silo, every buried submarine launch system lit up. The energy signatures combined into a single pulse of unimaginable force. The custodian fleet paused. The first vessel experienced structural resonance beyond comprehension. Systems overloaded. Hulls cracked. Energy shields melted like wax in the sun. Ward leaned on the console. They thought fear would make us beg. They forgot, we don't beg. We respond. Alvarez grinned despite himself. I think we just gave the galaxy a heart attack. Ward's gaze hardened. No. We just reminded it who built it. The first custodian ship exploded silently in the void, a bright flare that illuminated the darkness for millions of kilometers. The others recoiled, then attempted formation maneuvers. But the humans had anticipated that too. Gravity wells, electromagnetic interference, and kinetic projectiles launched from the edge of the solar system tore through their fleet like paper. By the time Earth civilians noticed anything, there was nothing to see, only a brief flash of light, then the return of normality, as if nothing had happened. On the bridge, Ward's face was pale, tired, but resolute. They think this is punishment, he said softly. They don't realize it's a demonstration. Alvarez shook his head, laughing in disbelief. We just annihilated a moon-sized fleet, and no one even blinked. Ward didn't respond. His eyes were on the stars, knowing the custodians were alive, shocked, calculating, and terrified for the first time in millions of years. The final transmission came seconds later, breaking through the static like a scream muffled in space. Humanity is unpredictable. Termination sequence failed. Ward allowed himself the smallest smile. The first real one since the message arrived. Yes, he whispered. You wanted judgment. You got a lesson. The universe had expected humans to cower, to surrender, to plead. Instead, humanity had answered in full force, brutal and cold, but precise. And beyond Pluto, in the cold dark, the sleeping giant rested again, ready for the next attempt. Because predators do not negotiate with killers, they respond. And humanity had just proven that lesson in a way the galaxy would never forget. The price of defiance. Silence returned to Earth, but it was the wrong kind of silence. Not relief. Not peace. A tense, trembling calm, like holding your breath underwater while the predator circles just out of sight. Admiral Ward leaned against the viewport of the Vigilant. He could see the blue curve of the planet below, marred by fires in remote regions, casualties of collateral disruption, human systems overloaded by defensive measures no one fully understood. Humanity had survived, yes, but survival came at a cost. Alvarez came to stand beside him. You ever think about what just happened? A moon-sized fleet. And we barely scratched them. What happens if they come back? Ward's gaze stayed on Earth. Then we hit harder. His voice was calm but cold, like a blade sliding through velvet. And we will. Because they made a mistake, they assumed we'd beg. They assumed that extinction was an option. Alvarez shook his head. They're not just angry. They're smart. They're patient. They're custodians. Ward smirked. And we're humans. Nothing scares us. Nothing predicts us. They'll learn that the hard way. Meanwhile, across human cities, the people had no idea what had occurred. Satellites had recorded the custodian destruction in orbit, but the images were classified, scrubbed from public networks. Citizens went about their lives, oblivious, drinking coffee, arguing over bills, planning vacations. Ward knew better. Humanity's survival was still a shadow over the planet. Every leader, every strategist, every soldier held their breath, waiting for the custodians' inevitable return. Because the custodians were not petty. They were not emotional. They were efficient. And efficiency could wait, for centuries, if needed. In the orbital command chamber, a warning alert flashed. Not from the aliens. From inside humanity's own systems. Admiral, said Lieutenant Chen, voice tense. We've detected unauthorized energy spikes across multiple continents. Civilian defense contractors are firing experimental devices. They're activating unknown systems without clearance. Ward raised an eyebrow. Good. Let them wake up. Let them learn what it means to be human. Alvarez's eyes widened. You mean, we let them experiment? They could blow themselves up. Ward shrugged. Or they could build the tools that keep our species alive. Creativity under pressure, that's our edge. Not obedience. Not patience. Survival. The custodians, watching from the edge of the solar system, recalculated. The humans had exceeded every prediction. Their doomsday protocols, their countermeasures, their tactical thinking, all unpredictable. They were not just uncooperative. They were terrifying. A senior custodian commander projected itself before the others. Its voice, modulated for subspace communication, was sharp with uncharacteristic agitation. They resisted perfectly. All predictions fail. How can they survive against us? Another custodian replied, tone flat but laced with incredulity. They do not fear. They do not obey. Probability is meaningless against them. And for the first time, the custodians felt uncertainty. Back on Earth, Ward convened a secure meeting with the human leaders. Generals, politicians, and intelligence chiefs crowded into the subterranean chamber, tension vibrating through the walls. Halvorsen asked, voice tight. Admiral, are we safe? Ward's answer was simple, unwavering. Safe? No. But we're unpredictable. And that makes us dangerous. A younger officer, barely 28, spoke up. Sir, the fleet is gone. They didn't attack again. Maybe they won't come back. Ward shook his head. Maybe not. Or maybe they're preparing something we can't even imagine yet. Either way, we're ready. Not because we have weapons. Not because we have fleets. Because we have humans. The room went quiet. Not fear, but understanding. Days later, Ward walked through the streets of New York, watching humanity go about its ordinary lives. Children laughed. Markets bustled. Cars honked. A man walked his dog past a burned-out, abandoned block, ignoring the soot because it didn't matter today. Alvarez caught up, hands shoved into his jacket pockets. You realize we just painted a target on ourselves, right? Every other species now knows not to trust us, or to fear us. Ward smiled faintly. Exactly. Fear is the universal language. We speak it fluently. But they'll learn something else too. Disrespecting humanity comes with consequences. A distant flash in the sky caught Ward's eye. Not a missile, not an explosion, just a streak of light, like a reminder that the custodians were still out there, still watching, still calculating. Ward's voice was low, almost a whisper. They'll come back. They always do. But next time, we'll be ready. And in the black void beyond Pluto, something stirred. The sleeping giant of humanity's creation, the arsenal humanity had hidden for decades, pulsed faintly. Not fully awake yet. Not unleashed. But alive. Because humans didn't retreat. Humans didn't surrender. And humans never, ever, forgot. The galaxy had learned one undeniable truth. You do not bargain with murderers. And you never, ever underestimate humanity. Alvarez shook his head, staring at Ward. You're enjoying this way too much. Ward laughed quietly. Enjoying? No. Savoring? Perhaps. History rarely gives you the chance to make a species remember why they're terrified of you. And somewhere far away, through the cold, endless void, the custodians realized, too late, that humanity had only just begun to teach the lesson. Humanity's lesson. The galaxy was quiet again. Too quiet. Not because the custodians had left. Not because Earth was safe. Because the universe had learned something it hadn't accounted for. Humans do not negotiate. Humans do not apologize. Humans do not surrender. And most importantly, humans do not forget. Admiral Ward stood in the observatory of Orbital Command, watching Earth rotate slowly below him. Cities glimmered with artificial light. Fires had been contained. Life had resumed. Normal, or as normal as it could ever be after staring down extinction. Alvarez joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. You realize, he said, voice quiet, we've changed the rules now. No other species will look at us the same way again. Not allies. Not enemies. Everyone is watching. Ward sipped his coffee, eyes fixed on the horizon of Earth and the stars beyond. Good. Let them watch. Let them see what happens when you threaten humanity. Let them feel the fear we know too well, because that's the only thing they understand. Alvarez laughed bitterly. You really are enjoying this, aren't you? Ward's grin was sharp. Not enjoying. Teaching. And it's a lesson the galaxy won't forget. Across the solar system, dormant fleets stirred. Experimental weapons systems blinked alive. Hidden facilities sent signals across interstellar space, silent, encrypted, and unmistakably human. Every custodian vessel that had survived the first encounter recalculated. They realized, painfully, that the humans they had judged, the species they had assumed would beg for mercy, had become a force of terrifying unpredictability. A custodian commander spoke to its peers, tone icy but laced with something new, uncertainty. They do not act according to logic. They do not follow predictable patterns. Their aggression is ingenious. Another replied. They are dangerous. Calculated. But reckless. Yes. Reckless. Ingenious. Human. Back on Earth, ordinary humans went about their lives, unaware of the cosmic shockwave their species had caused. Children played in the streets. Lovers argued over dinner. Workers cursed the slow elevators. And somewhere in the background, humanity's arsenal waited. Sleeping giants, hidden for decades, ready to awaken should the galaxy ever try to write Earth's obituary again. Ward watched a child kick a ball across the plaza, sunlight reflecting off their carefree face. He whispered to Alvarez, They have no idea. Every species we meet thinks we're weak, predictable, negotiable. Every species thinks it can control us. Every species is wrong. Alvarez nodded. And every species that underestimates us now knows exactly why. The custodians had not fully retreated. They lingered at the edges of the solar system, observing, calculating, planning. But each calculation returned the same terrifying truth. Humanity's survival was not just likely, it was inevitable. Because humans don't fight fairly. Humans don't play by the rules. Humans adapt. Humans endure. And when pushed, humans strike with precision, ferocity, and cunning beyond expectation. Ward turned from the viewport, face calm but eyes burning with resolve. We didn't just survive, he said. We didn't just fight back. We reminded the galaxy that humanity is untouchable, not because we are invincible, but because we are relentless. Alvarez smirked. Relentless and terrifying. Ward's gaze hardened. Exactly. Let them come back. Let them try. They'll see the cost of underestimating us. And when they do, they'll learn what humanity really is. Silence hung in the command chamber, not of fear, but of understanding. The weight of a species' legacy, its survival instinct, its relentless audacity, pressed upon everyone present. Humans had faced extinction. The galaxy had judged them guilty. And humanity had not bowed. Humanity had answered with fire. With ingenuity. With cold, calculated brutality. And the message echoed across the stars, clear, simple, and unyielding. Do not bargain with murderers. Humanity never does. Outside, the stars shone as if nothing had happened. But every distant observer, the custodians, other species, civilizations yet to reach Earth, knew differently. Something had changed. Something ancient, unpredictable, and unbreakable had awakened. Humanity had survived. Humanity had retaliated. And humanity had made the galaxy pay attention. The lesson was simple. The lesson was brutal. And the lesson would never be forgotten. Because humans are not victims. Humans are predators. And predators never apologize. The galaxy had learned, in fear and awe, the hardest truth of all. You do not underestimate humanity. The stars themselves seemed to shiver. And somewhere, deep in the darkness, The sleeping giants stirred again, waiting for the next lesson the universe would never forget. The end.